Hello, viewers. This is Codger speaking, and we are embarking on a new series of videos that I plan to make about Run 8. And this is another of the videos that we're going to make, and it's just going to be an introduction to the locomotives that are available in the default uh, base version of Run 8. And these are uh, these locos and the liveries or what's available in the base version. Some of the locos have a number of liveries. Uh, some of the locomotives have only uh, a, a generic livery and for Run 8, and some have a Run 8 uh, additional livery, a livery in addition to the generic livery, and we'll try to point that out as we go through and look at each one of these individually. But from the right to the left, we have the CW449W and the GP40-2, otherwise known as the Jeep. The MP15, the only locomotive in the set where the cab is in the back of the loco rather than the front. The SD40-2, the SD40T-2, the SD45-2, and then the ES44DC and the SD70 ACE. You will see a lot of similarities between these locos, so sometimes it's very hard to tell the difference between them, especially if you look at these SD40s and the SD45. Those three trains are so similar to one another, it is almost impossible to tell the difference. But there are some differences, especially if you look at the front of the locomotive. You can tell some differences between each one of these and the headlights that they display. For example, the SD40-2 has headlights at the very top of the cab. The SD40T-2 has headlights at the top of the cab and below the cab. Uh, and then the SD45-2 has headlights only below the cab. And that's one way that you can distinguish between those three locomotives. When you get inside these locomotives, the control panel that is used to drive the train is very similar on the six on the right. The control panels look almost identical all the way down the line. And then the two on the left have control panels that are almost identical to one another. In fact, the ES44DC and the SD70 ACE is almost impossible to tell the difference on the outside between these two. There are some differences, but not much. The headlights look the same, as a matter of fact, on these. And I think there's a little bit of difference in the railing at the front of the train. A little bit of difference on the hood in front of the cab uh, when you compare the two, but otherwise these trains look a lot alike. We're going to look at each one of these trains, and we'll give you a look at the liveries that are available. So stay tuned. Oh, this is the C44 9W, uh, one of the diesel electric locomotives in Run 8. This was built from 1993 to 2004, and there have been 3,668 units built. It has 4,400 horsepower, and it's 73 feet long. It weighs 425,000 pounds. And of course, you can see it has 6 axles. All of the locomotives at Run 8 have 6 axles. There's only one uh, livery other than the default Run 8 livery, and it's this Run 8 livery. And it's the only one you get in the base model, base version of Run 8. You can purchase additional liveries for it if you want to. Let's take a look on the inside. Okay, here is the console for the CW 449W, and it's a little bit distinctive console in Run 8. It's the only locomotive that has this console. But you can see it has all of the normal controls that all of the trains in Run 8 have. It has the reverser and the throttle control. It has the reverser here, the throttle control. This is the auto brake and the independent brake. Then there are gauges up here for the pressure systems, the brake pipe, the brake cylinder for the locomotive, the um, uh, the main reservoir and the emergency reservoir. Then we have the speedometer here, right where the engineer can see it easily, and the amperage gauge. Over on the left, the pressure flow indicator, and then a number of switches here for the headlights and the alerter and the horn and so on. Everything that you need in the locomotive to run it. Uh, the Most of the circuit breakers here in the back in Run 8 are not functional. There are a few things that are functional on the circuit breaker panel, but generally you don't do very much back here on the circuit breaker. Most of the things that you would normally do here are done through a program interface for starting the locomotive and things of that nature. So you don't need to be too concerned about that in the Run 8 uh, locomotives. Let's go ahead and look at the next locomotive. The next locomotive we want to look at is the GP40-2. This is an example of it. The SJVR livery is the only livery that is in the base Run 8 program. The GP40 was built from 1972 to 1986. 1,143 of them were produced. It has horsepower it has 3,000 horses, and it has a length of 59 feet. The weight is 250,000 pounds. Let's take a look on the inside. It has the dynamic brakes and the throttle on separate levers. It has the reverser down here at the bottom of the control panel. Have the auto brakes, the red handle here, and the independent brakes below that. And you have your gauges up here at top, including the speedometer. that's the Jeep, and it's an interesting, it's fun. It's fun to ride. Not my favorite, but it's okay. Let's take a look at the next locomotive. Okay, here we are with the MP-15 DC. Uh, this is kind of an interesting locomotive. It's the only locomotive that has the long end on the front of the locomotive, um, and the cab is on the back of the locomotive. All the others have the cab on the front, and so it's an interesting locomotive. It is used primarily for uh, yard maintenance, I believe, and I don't think you'd see this on a long freight haul ever at all. But it's called the MP-15DC. It's like all the others, it's diesel electric. This one's built by General Motors, and it was built from 1974 to 1980. Only 315 of them were produced. It has 1,500 horsepower and has a length of 47 or 58 feet, depending upon what year it was built. On the inside, it has a kind of a sparse control panel compared to the others, but it has all the necessary uh, information, all the necessary controls that are needed, and it has something that is not found in the other locomotives. Even though the other locomotives you can use the slow speed control on the other locomotives, those are all keyboard activated, and there aren't any controls inside the locomotives for that. However, the uh, the MP-15 has controls for the slow control. This button turns the slow control on and off, and this lever can be used to increase or decrease the speed of that is set for the slow control. It has uh, a lever here. Uh, I believe that is for the throttle, and it doesn't look like it has dynamic brakes. And so that may be why it's not why it wouldn't be used out on the main track. Of course, it has the uh, uh, reverser lever, forward, neutral, and reverse, and has the buttons and everything for turning on lights, headlights, and so on. So it has here we have the automatic brake and the independent brake in their natural location. Gauge controls up here to uh, see how the brakes are doing, and the speedometer up here above everything in nice bright uh, white background there. Okay, next we have the SD40-2. There are several SD40 models with just uh, very limited differences between them. Mostly, I think you would distinguish the models by looking at the headlights. You could the headlight configurations. differs from one model to the next, but this is the SD40-2. This was built between 1972 and 1989. 3,982 units were produced during that time. It has 3,000 horses of horsepower. It's 68 feet and 10 inches long. Let's take a look on the inside. First have to select it here, and there we go. And you'll see it has the familiar uh, control panel that we saw on a couple of the other ones already, the C44 and the Jeep. Uh, and so they're all made by the same company. So uh, that's one of the reasons why they all look the same. So that is the SD40-2. The next one is the SD40T-2. The SD40T-2 has its own Run 8 livery in the base model. So it has a little bit distinctive look for, at least from the livery standpoint. It doesn't look like just a generic uh, livery. So that's nice. It is the second of the SD40 models. It was built from 1974 to 1980, but only 312 units were produced during that time. It has 3,000 horses, and it's 70 feet long, 8 inches and 8 inches. It weighs 3,068,000 pounds total. And again, we get the familiar uh, control panel that we've seen on several others already. And so I won't go into any more detail about that. Well, this one probably looks a little familiar, but there are slight differences between it and the previous models. This is the SD45-2, and it is the first uh, model in the uh, default build of Run 8 that has more than one livery. And so if I turn over here to the right, you can see that all of these locos uh, to the right are different liveries for this uh, SD45-2. We've got two BNF liveries. They are mostly the same, but I think there's a little bit difference uh, in the wear and tear of the look of these models. And we have a CSX model down here. Let's go down and see what else we have. There's a a Norfolk Southern livery. Then we also have Southern Pacific and a couple of UP liveries. These UP liveries are almost identical to one another, except for one gives a little bit older appearance than the first. So let's take a look at the inside of the SD45-T, and you probably won't be surprised to see that it's almost identical to what we have seen previously in all of these. Just minor differences between them. The ES44DC is our first modern locomotive in the and maybe the only modern locomotive in the Renate set. This locomotive has uh, several liveries, like a couple of BNSFs liveries that, in fact, three BNSF liveries and several others. Let's just go down the line and look at the other liveries here. Another CSX livery, Norfolk Southern and Southern Pacific, then a couple of Union Pacific liveries. The BNSF, the ES44 DC was started to be built 2003, and it is still being built today. It has 4,000 horsepower and 73 feet long and 2 inches. I could not find the weight on this thing. It's probably more than anything we've seen so far. Maybe with the exception of the C-44-9, which was 425,000 pounds. But this is probably pretty close to that, if not a little bit more than the C-44-9. Let's take a look on the inside. And we'll see here a different control panel that looks nice and modern. Has this train sports two independent function displays that present all of the information plus some than compared to what the other trains we've seen so far are capable of doing. Let's go ahead and take a look at our displays a little bit closer. And right now we are looking at let's go ahead and take a look at what we can see here. There is, we'll start here with the traction motor display that shows what has been cut out, cut in. This is a locomotive monitor that gives all the information that you ever need to know about the locomotive while driving down the tracks. We have the emergency reservoir, the brake pipe pressure, the brake cylinder pressure this is the brake cylinder pressure for the locomotive, and the main reserve. We can see what the RPM of the motor is, the miles per hour, the gross horsepower being generated, the net horsepower. This is an accelerometer that tells us the difference in the change of your speed in miles per hour per minute. This is a counter. In one direction, you can count the length of the train so that you know when the last car has passed a certain point. Road number, this is the number of the locomotive that you're driving. And so this is the BNSF 7673. Then we have a reverser indicator that changes when you change the reverser. And throttle indicator obviously changes when you move the throttle. And it tells you the power that you've moved the throttle into, as well as the dynamic brakes, and it has to be running in order to show the dynamic brakes there. Then let's see our next one here. This is the locomotive monitor. Gives the fuel, temperature, engine RPM, the compressor RPM. The compressor is necessary for building up air pressure and engine temperature. And then the DPU monitor, the same as over here. Some information about the train. We have the symbol, the train symbol. This is the name that has been given to the locomotive. We have the length of the locomotive, or the length, not the locomotive, but the length of the consist. All of those locomotives back behind us together bring this consist to a length of 586 feet. Horsepower per ton. It's set. Well, it's not. We don't have any cars, so it's not going to calculate that here. The total tons, the TOB, this is the tons per uh, brake axle. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it has something to do with the amount of power that you have uh, that your brakes have to handle per brake. And then the total DB axles, dynamic brakes axles, this is count of the axles on the locomotives that are used for dynamic braking. And there are 64 in this cases from all of the cars that we've got. 8 units, 8 cars, um, and there are 6 axles per unit. 8 times 6 is not 64. Uh, so uh, not all of the axles on the train, not all of the axles on these locomotives are used for dynamic braking. I'm sorry, the total axles, I'm not sure about these now because it says the total axles are 48 and dynamic axles are 64, and that doesn't make sense to me. So I'm not sure what that's telling me. And then the train mile per hour limit gives you that as 75. That is an upper limit for what this train is supposed to be able, or what this locomotive is supposed to be able to handle. And we have one more locomotive to look at, and let's go take a look at it. Well, this is the last locomotive in run 8 for us to examine. It is really uncanny how much this locomotive looks like the ES44DC. They look almost identical, especially when you put a BNS livery on both it and the ES44DC. This is the SD70 ACE, and it started being built in 1992, and it is still being produced. I was able to find just a little bit of information on the internet about the SD70. There's some there, but I don't think there's even a wiki page for this one yet, which is unusual. All the other locos have a wiki page that you can get information about them from. There are several liveries in Run 8 for the SD70, and you can see these down the line, the CSX, Northern, Southern. We have another Run 8 livery down there, maybe a couple of Run 8 liveries. I'm not sure what that what these are on the end are. There's a Run 8. Here is another Run 8 livery, and then finally a couple of Union Pacifics down here on the end. And let's take a look on the inside, and that will complete our review of the the trains in Run 8. And this train has the modern look, as well as the ES44DC. The the monitors may be a little bit different from one to the other. It doesn't have quite all the same pages here that the other has, but it has most of them. The ones that you really need are the distributed power monitor that you see over here on the right, and this monitor here on the left that shows information. Those I would say are maybe the most important of all the monitors. You see the information up here on the top, uh, information about the brake pipes and the cylinder, the reservoirs, and so on. It also has the counter ability to count the train as it's going down the track, so that you know when the complete train has passed a certain point, uh, and so on. So has everything you need to run a train. So those are all of the locomotives that are in Run 8. We hope that this has been uh, a useful video for you, and look forward to seeing you in more to come.